Just curious, like why you felt that it was appropriate and important for us to talk about this issue today on this podcast. Because, you see the comments, stay in your lane, watch Mojo, talk about movies and TV. We don't want to hear about this. I'm unsubscribing, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, first of all, 20 years ago when YouTube was like Manhattan in, the 18th era, 1800s, like I know the YouTube dynamics and psychology. You could dislike a video and you're like, dislike, unsub, die, and you come back the next day. So if we just did what people wanted, well, guess what? We would still be doing cooking videos and travel videos. We would not be doing top 10 lists, just to be clear. 2, I also think that like there's a pyramid of users. There's 1% that are very loud, very vocal, and they are going to complain and whine about something because that's their nature. And you need those people. Like in our company, you might have 1 or 2 people that are always disagreeing and complaining, but then when you just engage them and you address it, you're like, it's not a big deal, right? You have a lot of people who may like or may share, who may be like, okay, I wasn't expecting this from WatchMojo, because our job in media is to keep audiences guessing, informing them, entertaining them. But I've also said it that there's this silent majority, like the people that voted for Donald Trump, that everybody thought was not going to win. And I kept saying it's his election to lose. And he won. So there are a lot more people than you think in life and in media that actually care about things, but they're not the ones that are going to come. I mean, if you watch this and you think this is Hasbara, you're a fucking moron. There's nothing I could do for you, But the final point is more critically to WatchMojo is we look at our stats. We might have had a viewer who was like 10, 15 years ago who was 15. Maybe he or she only cared about Batman and Call of Duty, but that person is definitely more into current affairs, is paying attention to interest rates and mortgage rates and also conflicts around the world. So I don't think it's that weird. I think in media, when you're a storyteller, you need to have confidence, you need to have conviction, and you need to have the courage to just talk about things. And frankly, for us, this, I know we put it on WatchMojo for those that care. This was us just wanting to branch out into podcasts. And again, people cover topics that we would not otherwise cover. If I would have done, I sent it to you. I'm very transparent. So last night when we settled to do this topic, I shared with you 10 points that I had started to draft for a top 10 facts about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict that a few colleagues pushed back on a year ago and said, I don't think we should do this. And I didn't fight it. I said, yeah, that's fair. I get it. We shouldn't do that. But if we're going to do a podcast that's talk format, and again, I wouldn't do something on astrophysics. I'm not the guy to talk about, should there be like life on Mars? Should we colonize it? I have my opinion, but I don't know that. But the areas that we cover, whether it's capitalism, these are things that I'm well versed in. But also, I find it shocking that people are dying on both sides and have been dying, and very few people find that area of compromise. And it's either IDF are terrorists or Hamas is terrorists. It's either Israel Chai, or Free Palestine, River to the Sea. And I'm like, you're all morons, because this is just going to go on for decades and decades. So to those that enjoy it, great. That those that don't enjoy it, we have 10 other freaking videos for you to watch. Like, what more can we do? It's free content. You didn't pay to watch this. It's free. So let's just like outline for those like you who may be not super familiar. So, if you go back, the land of like what is now like Israel/Palestine was actually Canaan, Canaan. And that's the cradle of Semitic civilizations. And so the term, the kingdom of like Israel and Judea is historically, I don't think that is contested. And that's an area that eventually was conquered by Babylonians and the Persians of the Persian Empire, and eventually Greeks and Romans. And it was really in like, I think the 2nd century after Christ, where the Romans, who were at the time ruling through the Roman Empire, they wanted to punish the Jews for a revolt that they were doing. And so they named it Syria-Palestina. So the word Palestine comes from there. It was just, the Romans that gave that name. And then obviously Jews, for many reasons, it's widely, I'm not saying anything new, were persecuted. And as, one reason why Cyrus the Great is so beloved by, and referenced in the Torah was because as in the 6th century BC, he let the Jews, he freed them, he let them go back to modern day Israel to rebuild their temple, right? So, but by and large, the Jews were always like super discriminated. And that post that I put on X, on X, was that. It was basically, the point was, you know, when I was 8, whipping open the World Book Encyclopedia, and I would read about the Jews, you would read about the Holocaust and all these other things. And you saw them as victims, even though, like, okay, in media and finance, it's a well-represented, successful cohort. Super impressive group. You've seen the stats. The number of Nobel Prizes vis-a-vis the total population is obscene. But so the point was that when like the previous generation, when you'd read about the Jews, they were the victims. You know, they were the victims that through many things were able to conquer and be resilient and come back. And then they made the desert bloom, and, you know, whether it's propaganda or legit, and the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But my point was that, yeah, if you look at this generation, rightfully or wrongfully, they're going to think of the Jews as the perpetrators of a genocide in Gaza. And we can discuss how the UN defines genocide, the 5 conditions, whether there's intent or not. We're not here to discuss like international law and stuff. But agree or disagree, there's a lot of younger people that will associate Israel with that. And I was saying that's kind of a shame. You know, it's like you should care about your reputation. And then the second one, I'm a guy that's been empathetic with the Palestinian cause going back, 30 plus years, despite the fact that as an Iranian, I don't like the fact that they freaking supported Saddam Hussein and many other things. But I'm not commenting as a biased Iranian. I'm just commenting as a human wearing like a historian or sociological hat. But the issue was then also that the Palestinian cause has been hijacked now. You know what I mean? Like, as much as there's a lot of people, moderates, who may empathize with their plight, when you see just anti-West, anti-capitalism, obviously also anti-Semitic people in that group, just ride, the cause. I don't know if long-term either side is going to benefit. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to view the Jews now as the bad guys, and no longer as like these victims of others' prejudice, and ergo they kind of overcame the odds. But I also think that you really have to be intellectually dishonest to think that Palestine is a country, meaning what are the borders? Who is the leader? Where's the capital? It's very easy to be like, free Palestine and I believe in a Palestinian country, but those are 3 questions that everybody should answer before you make that claim. I don't think anybody could say intellectually honestly that like this has been gotten them any closer, in tangible terms. Anyway, so as the Jews over the centuries and millennia were being persecuted, undoubtedly many of them left and they went to Spain and Europe and other places, including Iran, which used to house the 2nd biggest community after Israel. And yeah, they were kicked out for many reasons from many countries, which added to like the tragedy of their history, as equally tragic with the Palestinians have had to endure. But so at some point, yeah, I think what happened was this confluence in like the late 19th century with the rise of Zionism by Herzl, who was not even, I was going to say Theodor Herzl, who was not even like a religious person, ironically. So that's why I go, this is not necessarily just like a religious conflict as much as it's ideological, as much as it's monetary. It's always financial as well, but it's land, it's pride, it's ego, and all that.